Good morning. It's Monday, September 4th. It's Labor Day. Now, Labor Day has a long history in this country. And I'll get into that in a moment, but I want to tell you that when I was a child growing up, we were a heavily left-wing family, and we all belonged to labor unions. And my first jobs after I graduated from high school were in labor union positions. And I was making $60 a week when people doing similar jobs in non-union shops were only making about $40 a week. So belonging to a union was a good thing. And I liked the work. Fortunately, I recognized the fact that I wasn't going to get very far working in warehouse. Even though I was being well paid for my time and I was single, I really didn't need a lot of money. And we had decent vacation benefits and everything. But after 3 years of working like that, I went back to college. But I'm also glad that I spent time working in places where you meet the average person and you understand some of the struggles that those people have. In fact, one of the guys I worked with was a black man, a nice fella. He was in his 40s, and he had come north after spending 9 years in prison in the South on a manslaughter charge because he had a fight with a fellow who was messing with his girlfriend or something of that sort. And if he had been fighting with a white man, they probably would have strung him up. So you meet a lot of different people when you worked in a union shop. And the particular union that I worked with was District 65 of the CIO and the AFL too. And we were different because we weren't a father and son union. There were, and I think there probably still are, many unions that were legacy unions. So if you had an uncle or an aunt or a relative of some kind, you could get a union job in that particular union. But if you didn't have a relative, you weren't going to get one. And my prime example of that is that my daughter graduated from the Yale Drama School with a master's degree in technical design, set decorations, building all kinds of things for plays and everything. She couldn't get a job working on the New York stage because the Stagehands Union in New York was a father and son and uncle and nephew, niece business, and you couldn't get in there. So she went off to Arizona and started her career in a small theater in Arizona, in Tucson, and the rest is history. But I'm not going to talk about that history. So getting back to Labor Day. It's the first Monday in September after the first Sunday. It's an annual celebration of the social and economic achievements of the American worker. The holiday is rooted in the late 19th century, when labor activists pushed for a federal holiday to recognize the many contributions American workers have made to America's strength and prosperity and well-being. And I think we could use something like that right now in this country. A movement of some kind to draw us back together again. So staying on topic, before it was a federal holiday, Labor Day was recognized in many regions of the country, recognized by labor activists and individual states. And there were many ordinances passed by municipalities. These were passed in the late 1800s, 85, 86, somewhere in that time frame. These activities took place in the attempt to create a national holiday. Oregon was the first state to pass such a law recognizing Labor Day in February 21st, 1887. And by 1894, 23 more states had adopted the holiday. And on June 28th, 1894, Congress passed an act making the first Monday in September of each year a holiday, a legal holiday. As a kid growing up, I didn't understand all of this history, but the one thing I knew, on Labor Day there was a doubleheader at Yankee Stadium, and probably around the rest of the country also. In those days, though, there were only 8 teams in each league. Interestingly enough, there were 2 gentlemen named McGuire who pushed hard to get Labor Day to be a national holiday. And they were not relatives in any way, shape, or form, and they spelled their names differently. Now, Peter J. McGuire was the General Secretary of the Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners and a co-founder of the American Federation of Labor. And while Matthew McGuire was the Secretary of Local 344 of the International Association of Machinists in Paterson, New Jersey. And both of them had proposed the holiday independently in 1882. In fact, when President Cleveland signed the law creating the national holiday of Labor Day, the president declared that the souvenir pen should go to Alderman Matthew McGuire of that Jersey City town, who was the undisputed author of Labor Day as a holiday. But both of the McGuires were in attendance at that ceremony, and I don't think that Peter McGuire made a big deal out of the fact that Matthew McGuire got the pen. I think each of them was equally satisfied that they had achieved something great for this country. Isn't it interesting that 2 guys named McGuire, not related, spelled their names differently, pushed hard for this national holiday? And even though one was officially recognized, the other one still stood by without complaining and took credit where credit was due quiet. We need more people like that in this country these days. In many parts of the country, Americans are celebrating Labor Day with parades and parties. And the festivities are very similar to those outlined in the first proposal for a holiday. It suggested that the day should be observed with a street parade to exhibit the strength and esprit de corps of the trade and the labor organizations of this country. Then, following the festival of recreation and amusement, we should look happily at workers and their families, remembering their contributions to the greatness of this country. American labor has in many places raised the standard of living of the people who are working on jobs around the country. But there's still, after 125 years, there's still work left to be done. So Labor Day is a great celebration. It's a wonderful idea. It's a great day. I always liked it. But there's still a lot of work to be done. There are still many places in this country where labor is not treated properly. And if you look at the minimum wage around this country, it's a shanda that we have states that still have a $7.50 minimum wage. So while we had this great day and we celebrate the contributions of labor once a year on this Monday, there's still a lot of work to be done. The job is not finished yet. Bye.